Hello and welcome to another daily dose of insights powered by Container Exchange. My name is Christian, and every other day we bring to you the key news, stories, and data points that move container markets and hence your business. Today it's Friday, so we call it Fundamental Friday. Let me briefly share my screen with you to give you a little bit of guidance here. And we have two core topics here on the agenda that I want to shine some light on. And number one, of course, West Coast labor deal is finally reached, also with some support from the White House and the Biden administration. But as the industry sees, the damage is done and might be done for good. We see and we saw a continued trend of cargo, North American inbound cargo, moving towards the East Coast and the Gulf ports, the Gulf ports, essentially decreasing the importance of the West Coast. The unions essentially exacerbated this fact by increasing uncertainty about terminal and port operations and essentially driving cargo further towards more reliable ports. Now, also what we see is that the change in sourcing patterns away from China, so the Chinese share of imports into North America relative to the total is decreasing, and other countries like Vietnam, other Southeast Asian countries, and Indian subcontinent are increasing. Now, that means that alternative routings, for example, through the Suez Canal and then cross-Atlantic, are increasingly attractive and competitive. And of course, also that benefits Gulf and East Coast ports. So great news that this disruption is finally over, at least it's a tentative agreement, but we might see a continued trend towards cargo moving to the East Coast and the Gulf ports. And then a very interesting analysis that I read this morning by Sea Intelligence, which essentially looked at demand in TEU miles, which not only takes into account overall TEU volumes, but also the distance traveled. And that's important because that essentially impacts how many vessels, how much vessel capacity you need in order to cover that demand. And what we see is, and I'm just going to go to the next page because I copy pasted there the graph here, and this is analysis by Sea Intelligence, and I'm going to post a link to the article as well. So this is head-haul TEU miles year-on-year growth, and we see here, of course, sort of the significant uptick as part of the pandemic. 2021, which is a massive, late 2020 and early 2021 was a massive growth spike in terms of TEU miles demand, and we now see significant fallbacks. And what is interesting is that most of this is driven actually by the Far East North America trade lanes. Of course, also a relatively long trade lane, so a heavy weight on the TEU miles metric. And if you exclude this, global demand measured in TEU miles is actually positive throughout March and April. So there we see a demand rebound on a global level, but of course the sort of very important and also demand heavy or capacity heavy trade lane Far East North America drags down the overall metric to a negative growth. Now, what does this mean for imbalance situation on the vessel and the container side? Of course, you can't exclude Far East North America there, and we continue to see significant supply overhang. Essentially for us, still this means significant risk of further deterioration on the freight rates, even though they might have already reached the level of variable costs. So that's it from me, from us for today, for this week. Have a fantastic start into the weekend, and see you all fresh and relaxed on Monday. Take care.